He almost walked past her, just a flicker of movement on the security camera. But there she was, Mariana, his housekeeper, sitting on the edge of the stone steps in the pouring rain, her lunch untouched, her shoulders shaking as if the sky were grieving with her. Elijah Renner had built a billion-dollar empire without ever stopping for storms. Until now. If you're ready to hear the whole story, click subscribe and let me know in the comments where you're watching from, because tomorrow, I will be giving you another story just as crazy as this one. And you don't want to miss it. Now let's get into it. Elijah Renner's world was made of glass and silence. His penthouse floated 40 stories above the city, framed by floor-to-ceiling windows that never opened. Everything within was clean, polished walnut floors, brushed steel accents, a fireplace he never used. Even the air felt filtered, as if grief couldn't live here. He stood barefoot in his kitchen at 6:07 a.m., stirring black coffee with a silver spoon. The taste was bitter, just how he liked it. No cream, no sugar. No softness. His phone buzzed once. His assistant, Liam, confirming the quarterly board call at 9. Elijah didn't respond. He rarely did. Words, like emotions, were reserved for contracts. The echo of heels clicked somewhere behind him. Mariana. She arrived like clockwork, quiet, early, invisible. She never announced herself. She never interrupted. A gentle presence with a mop, gliding through marble silence like she belonged to it and yet didn't. He glanced at her only once, just long enough to register the neat bun, the navy blue sweater she always wore under her uniform, the way her shoes squeaked slightly on freshly mopped floors. She kept her eyes down. Always. He said nothing. By the time he left for the office, his home would be spotless, and her presence erased. Mariana Cruz's world was made of movement and memory. She rose before dawn in her one-bedroom rental behind the bakery on Main. The ceiling leaked when it rained, but only over the sink, and she had placed a pot beneath it. Her routine was sacred: wash face, pack lunch, kiss the worn photo of her son folded in her wallet. She didn't own much. 2 pairs of shoes, both aching at the soles. 3 uniforms, scrubbed so often the fabric thinned near the elbows. Her fingers were always red. Cleaning agents didn't forgive skin. She took the 5:42 bus with men in construction boots and women who smelled of flour and fatigue. No one spoke. Silence was its own comfort. At the estate, she entered through the back. She never used the front door. Not out of shame, out of habit. Wealth moved differently. She had learned not to disturb it. Elijah never acknowledged her presence beyond the occasional nod. She preferred it that way. Less chance of her voice cracking. She worked in rhythms: dust, wipe, polish, repeat. The same motions that once rocked her baby to sleep now scrubbed mirrors and stainless steel. She didn't hum. She didn't pause. Movement kept the memories at bay. He saw wealth as insulation. She saw silence as survival. They never crossed beyond necessity. She passed by as he left, a ghost in uniform. He never saw the way she exhaled when the door shut behind him. She never knew that his silence wasn't pride, it was fear. Every evening, she packed her lunch for the next day: rice, beans, a boiled egg. Sometimes a tangerine. Always in foil. Always in silence. She ate her meals behind the greenhouse, near the stone steps that overlooked the edge of the estate's garden. Hidden. Not from shame, but from eyes. Even the sky never looked for her. That Monday morning was colder than usual. Clouds hung low, promising rain. Elijah didn't notice. He had a video call at 9 and a pitch meeting at 11. His mind spun like gears, never idle. But something snagged. As he reached for his keys, his eye caught the security panel by the door. One of the camera feeds glitched, then returned. Mariana. She was outside. Sitting on the edge of the back steps. Eating alone. No umbrella. No coat. Her uniform soaked at the shoulders, her lunch unwrapped on her lap. The rain had started 20 minutes ago. He froze. His thumb hovered above the panel. He could have turned away. Ignored it. But he didn't. Something in her stillness unsettled him. Not just the cold. Not just the rain. The loneliness. The quiet, practiced ache of it. He turned from the door. The rain deepened, turning the garden steps into stone veins. Elijah stood by the back door, unmoving. The surveillance panel behind him hummed quietly, forgotten. His fingers curled around the edge of the doorway as if crossing the threshold would cost him something he hadn't named yet. Mariana didn't shift. She sat with her knees together, foil cradled on her lap, hands folded like prayer. Raindrops slid off her hair, clinging to the edges of her sweater. Her spoon hovered above the rice for several seconds before she took a slow bite, chewing without expression. It wasn't that she looked broken. It was that she didn't. That somehow was worse. He watched her for a full minute before stepping outside. The cold bit immediately, wet cotton clung to his sleeves, shoes sinking slightly into the softened earth, but he barely felt it. She didn't look up. Not even when his shadow blocked part of her view. Not even when he stopped less than 2 feet away. Only when he spoke did she react. "Why are you sitting out here?" No judgment in his tone. No anger. Just confusion. Mariana blinked, then slowly turned her head. Her expression stayed neutral, eyes unreadable. "I didn't want to disturb the inside," she said quietly. He didn't reply. The rain pattered around them like background noise, but his silence wasn't indifferent. It was caught between disbelief and something else he couldn't name. "You were eating," he said. "Yes." "In the rain." "Yes," she repeated. A long pause. He looked at the crumpled foil in her lap. A hard-boiled egg, wet from the drizzle, split unevenly in half. Steam still rose faintly from the rice. He shook his head slightly, not in reprimand, just trying to make sense of her. "You know you can eat inside. There's a whole dining room." She gave a small smile, so small it barely touched her lips. "I know. But it's not my space." Her voice was gentle, without bitterness. It caught him off guard. "It's just a table," he said, glancing back toward the house. "It's yours," she replied, her tone as steady as the rain. Something about the simplicity of that answer stopped him. Ownership. Boundaries. Distance. Things he'd never thought she might feel. Or think about. She turned her face back toward the horizon. "There are places meant for being seen," she said. "And places meant for staying out of sight." Elijah inhaled slowly. "You think you belong out here?" She didn't answer right away. Then softly, "Some days, yes." Lightning flashed far off behind the hills. Thunder didn't follow. He crouched beside her, not touching, not pressing closer. Just lowering himself to her eye level. The rain soaked his blazer, but he didn't move. "Is this a punishment?" he asked, voice lower. That question cracked something. Mariana's throat tightened. She looked away, blinking fast, her hand gripping the foil too tightly now. "I eat here when I miss him," she whispered. "It reminds me." The air stilled between them. Elijah's pulse slowed. He didn't ask who, some part of him already knew. She continued, barely audible. He liked the rain. Said it made him feel invisible, like no one could see him cry. Elijah said nothing. She finally looked at him, fully. Her eyes weren't begging for sympathy. They weren't even asking for understanding. They were showing him something raw and unguarded. He died 5 years ago. Shot. Wrong place. Wrong people. Just a boy. Elijah's throat burned. He stood. The movement was slow, not abrupt. He looked at her for a long moment, then reached out his hand, not demanding, not formal. Just present. She didn't take it. She looked at it. Then him. Then turned her eyes back to the rain. He lowered his hand without offense. Just nodded. "I'll leave the back door unlocked," he said. Then walked back toward the house, leaving his footprints in soft earth behind him. Inside, he peeled off the soaked blazer, fingers trembling. He stared at the pristine white wall in the hallway. The same hallway he had once painted with Elena. She'd hated sterile white. Mariana's words echoed, he liked the rain. So did Elena. So did the child they'd never get to meet. He sat on the floor. For the first time in 5 years, he didn't open his laptop. Outside, Mariana finished her meal, bite by bite, rain softening the edges of her silence. She didn't cry. She hadn't, in years. But something in her chest ached differently this time. Not heavier. Not lighter. Just seen. Elijah hadn't spoken to anyone about it. Not Liam. Not Rosa. Not even the therapist he paid handsomely to listen without judgment and offer him nothing in return. He didn't mention the rain-soaked woman sitting outside his home, eating lunch like it was a memorial. He didn't bring it up because he didn't understand what it had done to him. But something had shifted. He noticed it that night, pacing his office long after midnight, the glow of the city licking the windows like a fever. He tried to work, he always did, but his focus scattered. A sentence in the quarterly report reminded him of her voice. The word loss sent something sharp along his ribs. By morning, the air in the house felt louder. Every faucet drip. Every door click. Every trace of her movement. He left for work 15 minutes early. Not because of a meeting. Because he didn't know what to say if he saw her. Mariana returned to her routine the next day. Uniform pressed. Hair in the same bun. Lunch packed neatly with the same boiled egg. The rain had cleared, but she still walked the garden path to the back steps when noon arrived. This time, she didn't sit. She stood beneath the tree, eyes fixed on the spot she'd occupied less than 24 hours ago. Everything felt intact. But different. Her hands fidgeted more now. Her body betrayed her steadiness. He had seen her. Not glanced. Seen. She thought that would make her feel small. It didn't. It made her feel dangerous. Vulnerability was a risk she'd stopped taking years ago. And yet somehow, she'd let it slip. Now the silence between them had weight. Texture. A presence. So she avoided it. She ate inside the greenhouse that day, pressed between clay pots and tomato vines, breathing in dirt and warmth. If he noticed she wasn't at the steps, he didn't mention it. Elijah's silence became a study in avoidance. He adjusted his schedule so their paths wouldn't cross. He took meetings from his car, left doors half open so she'd know to wait until he was gone before entering. And yet, he heard her. The clink of dishes. The soft thud of her footsteps upstairs. The faint buzz of the vacuum on the far side of the hall. Each sound landed in his chest like a question he wasn't ready to answer. One night, while pouring a second glass of whiskey he didn't need, he caught himself staring at the window. Waiting for movement. Hoping, then resenting the hope. He didn't ask her to sit with him. He didn't leave a note. He just thought about it. That was new. Mariana, too, tried to make herself smaller. She cleaned faster. Avoided lingering in rooms. Took her lunch earlier, finishing before he returned from wherever he now disappeared to. But the memory kept replaying. His voice in the rain, the question he asked, the hand he offered and withdrew. She hadn't meant to answer. Not truthfully. Not fully. But once the words had left her, she couldn't gather them back. And worse, he hadn't dismissed them. He'd listened. Not with sympathy. With stillness. She caught herself thinking about that stillness. About what it meant. About what it stirred in her. She hated that. She wasn't here to be seen. She was here to endure. Rosa arrived 2 days later. Unannounced. The doorbell rang once, sharp, unexpected. Elijah opened it with a neutral expression that barely held. She breezed in, all bright energy and probing eyes. "You look like hell," she said, dropping her purse on the kitchen stool. "You always say that." "Well, it's always true." He didn't argue. He poured her coffee and leaned against the counter. She looked around, then frowned. "You still have the same rug?" "It's a rug, Rosa. It's a rug with blood on it." He winced. "I had it cleaned." "Still," she said, sipping. "You know you keep ghosts like furniture." Mariana passed silently behind them, wiping the glass on the patio door. Rosa paused, her eyes following her. "New." "She's been here for over a year." "Oh." She blinked. "Huh." There was a beat. Rosa's gaze lingered. Something curious flickered behind her expression. "She always this quiet?" Elijah didn't answer. Rosa raised an eyebrow. He looked away. That evening, Elijah stood in the hallway between his bedroom and the guest room Rosa always took when she stayed over. He paused outside Mariana's cleaning closet. The door was slightly ajar. Inside, shelves of folded linens. Neat rows of labeled bottles. And something strange, A child's drawing faded, tucked into the mirror's edge. A boy. Stick figure. Lopsided smile. Rain above his head. He stepped back. Closed the door. Not out of disrespect. Out of reverence. Denial doesn't always shout. Sometimes it whispers. It finds its way into schedules, into silence, into questions unasked. Neither of them brought up the moment in the rain. But neither of them forgot it. And something in the house had changed. Not its walls. Its air. Like it was waiting. The week moved, but neither of them did. Elijah buried himself in meetings, calls, data sheets that dulled everything but the numbers. Mariana kept her routine airtight. Clean, fold, wipe, exit. The weather stayed dry. Still, she avoided the steps. She didn't think he would come again. She wasn't sure she wanted him to. The encounter came quietly. Saturday morning. A leak in the upstairs guest bathroom. She climbed the stairs with a toolbox and a folded towel over one arm. He never used that room, but Rosa had stayed the night and mentioned it casually during breakfast. Mariana knocked lightly. No answer. She pushed the door open, already balancing the wrench in her hand. He stood at the window. No suit. No shoes. Just a plain black t-shirt and jeans, looser than the usual tailored kind. His expression was unreadable, gaze fixed on the city skyline. "I'll be quick," she said. He didn't move. "It's fine." She knelt by the sink, twisting the valve, her back to him. The silence felt heavier than the leak. "I saw the drawing," he said suddenly. Her hand stilled. "I shouldn't have looked," he added. She didn't speak. "I didn't touch it," he continued. "But I saw the rain. The little boy." A pause. "That was your son." She nodded once. Quietly. "Yes. I'm sorry." She turned the valve slowly, water hissing into silence. Still kneeling, she rested her hands in her lap. "It was his favorite thing to draw," she said. "Rain. He used to say it made the sky feel like it missed us." Elijah leaned against the wall, arms folded. "Did you name him after anyone?" "No," she replied. "His name was Mateo." The way she said it made him feel like the name had weight. Like it belonged to a story too sacred to unfold all at once. "He looks happy," he said. She smiled faintly. He was. Even when we had nothing. The silence stretched, but it didn't feel as sharp. "I don't talk about him," she admitted. "Not because I'm hiding it. I just learned people don't know what to do when you carry something that hurts them to see." He looked down. He knew the feeling. When he spoke, his voice was lower. "I don't talk about her either." Mariana turned slightly. He met her gaze. "My wife. Elena." There was no tremble in his tone. No ceremony. Just a sentence he hadn't spoken aloud in years. "She died 5 years ago," he said. "Car crash. She was 7 months pregnant." Mariana's breath caught. She rose slowly, her eyes fixed on his. He didn't fill the silence. He let it settle, as if the truth needed to sit somewhere before it could be understood. "I'm sorry," she said gently. "Me too." Another pause. "I thought I was done talking about it," he added. "But then last week, in the rain. I don't know. Something cracked open." She didn't respond right away. "Then, it's easier to stay quiet. Until something reminds you you're still alive." His eyes softened. She stepped back, collecting the towel, folding it neatly. "I didn't mean for you to see that day." "I know," he said. He stepped forward. "Just a few feet. I think it mattered that I did." Her fingers tensed around the towel, but she didn't pull away. "I should get back to work." He didn't stop her. But neither of them turned too quickly. Later that evening, Rosa cornered Elijah in the kitchen. "Something's different," she said. He didn't look up from his tea. "You keep watching the hallway," she added. "Like you're waiting for a ghost." He set the mug down. "You're reading too much into it." "I'm not," she said. "That woman. Mariana." He finally met her eyes. "You've never looked at anyone the way you looked at her this morning. It's not what you think." She shrugged. "Then what is it?" He hesitated. It's recognition. That silenced her. Rosa's voice lowered. Is that what you want? I don't know, he said honestly. But you see her. A pause. Yes. Mariana stayed late that night. The upstairs linen closet had shifted on its hinges, and she wanted to fix it before Monday. As she hammered the bracket back into place, she heard footsteps approach behind her. I can help, Elijah said. She shook her head. I've got it. He knelt beside her anyway, holding the wood in place as she drove the final nail in. Their shoulders brushed once. Neither flinched. When she leaned back, he was still watching her, not staring, just observing, the way you might look at something you hadn't understood until now. You're not invisible, he said softly. Her lips parted slightly, caught between breath and surprise. No one should have to be, he added. She didn't answer. But she didn't look away. It started with a pipe. The main kitchen line ruptured early Monday morning. By the time Elijah arrived downstairs, the floor near the pantry was soaked, a dark bloom spreading beneath the tiles. Mariana had already placed towels across the threshold, her sleeves damp, her hair loose from the usual bun. I called a plumber, she said, standing. He'll be here after 3. Elijah looked around. What about meals? The stove's off. I'll clean what I can. Rosa emerged from the hallway mid-yawn. We'll need to eat somewhere else. I'll figure it out, Elijah said. Mariana began gathering the soaked cloths into a bucket. She didn't look at him. By noon, the plumber had delayed. Again by 3. At 5, he cancelled. Rosa made a face. You're a billionaire and your kitchen is down for 3 days? Seriously? Elijah ignored the jab. We'll manage, he said. We'll make it work. How? She asked. He didn't answer. But the thought had already formed. Dinner was quiet. Take-out cartons lined the coffee table. Elijah offered to clear space in the den, but Mariana had already spread napkins and unpacked the meals without being asked. Rosa sat cross-legged on the floor. Elijah remained standing for a long moment before finally lowering himself onto the couch. Mariana sat furthest from him, closest to the window. Her fingers moved carefully, as if folding invisible instructions into each motion. The room was dim. Outside, the sky threatened another storm. Between bites of pad thai and roasted vegetables, silence pressed against the walls. I don't usually eat with clients, Mariana said suddenly, eyes on her plate. Elijah looked over. I'm not a client right now. Still, she murmured. Rosa glanced between them. You two have weird energy. Neither replied. The next day brought more complications. The leak had spread. The plumber arrived and left twice, once for parts, once for silence. It became clear the job wouldn't finish until the end of the week. Elijah exhaled, half exasperated, half amused. So the kitchen is completely unusable. Mariana nodded. We'll need to move anything perishable to the upstairs fridge. Use the guest dining room, he said. We can set up there. Rosa leaned against the stair rail. Or just admit you're turning this place into a dorm. Elijah didn't respond. Mariana met his gaze briefly. I'll handle the setup. You don't have to do it alone. She blinked. He stepped forward. I'll help. By evening, they were both in the guest dining room. She arranged cutlery. He brought up the water bottles. They worked in silence for a while, until it became something else. Not just quiet. Companionable. Mariana reached for the serving tray at the same time he did. Their fingers brushed. She moved back instantly. Sorry, she said. He shook his head. Don't be. They each took a side of the table. Did you always cook for him? Elijah asked. Mariana paused. Mateo? Yes. He loved my cooking. Even when we barely had groceries, he'd say it was better than any restaurant. A soft smile touched her mouth. What about you? She asked. Did you cook for her? Elijah exhaled slowly. Tried once. Burned everything. She laughed for 10 minutes. Then made pancakes at midnight. That laugh was a sound he hadn't heard in years, until it echoed faintly in his mind. He smiled too. It wasn't forced. Over the next few days, proximity became routine. The dining room became shared territory. She arrived earlier, not because she had to, but because there was more to do. He lingered later, carrying trays instead of emails, watching the way her hands moved over dishes like she was handling something delicate. Rosa noticed. One morning, she caught Mariana humming in the hallway. Soft. Barely audible. "You're different," Rosa said lightly. Mariana paused, mid-step. "I mean it in a good way," Rosa added. Lighter. "I'm not sure what you mean." Rosa tilted her head. "You haven't been this present before." Mariana didn't answer. That night, the storm finally came. Lightning cracked above the estate. The power flickered once, then steadied. Elijah stood by the window, staring out. "I used to hate storms," he said quietly. Mariana folded a blanket near the couch. "Why?" "They reminded me of what I couldn't control." She nodded. "I used to love them. They reminded me I wasn't the only one breaking." The air between them softened. "You're not breaking," he said. She met his eyes. "Neither are you." A long silence. Then, "No," he agreed. "Not anymore." Somewhere between the broken pipes and the borrowed rooms, they stopped being strangers. They didn't name what was forming. Didn't need to. But it showed. In the way he handed her a glass before she asked. In the way she left an extra blanket on the couch even though he always slept upstairs. In the way neither looked away quite as quickly anymore. Tuesday morning arrived with stillness. No repairs. No deliveries. No background workers tracking mud through the hallways. Just the house breathing quietly, almost watchful. Mariana stood in the laundry room folding towels. Her hands moved automatically, rhythm practiced. But something inside her felt jagged, an echo from the night before, when Elijah had said "You're not breaking." She hadn't answered. Not because she disagreed. Because part of her wanted it to be true. Later that afternoon, Elijah found himself in the garden. Not walking. Not working. Just standing. The greenhouse door was open. He rarely entered it. Elena had once tried to keep herbs alive in the corner, and when they wilted, she laughed and said, "Nature hates me." We have that in common. He stepped inside. The smell hit first: damp soil, rosemary, faded citrus. There were clay pots neatly lined against the walls, labeled in Mariana's handwriting. Quiet proof she had made this space hers. In the far corner, on a shelf half hidden by ivy, was a small metal box. He didn't intend to open it. But it wasn't locked. Inside, a folded cloth. A photograph. A note with faded ink. He didn't read it. Not yet. But the photo stopped him cold. A boy, maybe 9 or 10, beaming in a yellow raincoat. He held a soccer ball in one hand and flashed a missing tooth smile toward the camera. Behind him, a woman. Mariana. Younger, less guarded, arms wrapped around his shoulders. Sunlight poured across them like permission. Elijah closed the box and stepped back. She found him that evening. He was in the den, sorting through emails he didn't want to answer. She entered without a word, paused, then gently placed a small clay pot beside his laptop. He looked up. "Mint," she said. "You mentioned you liked it in tea." He blinked, then smiled, soft, real. "Thank you." Her eyes flicked toward the closed greenhouse door. "You went in today." He didn't pretend otherwise. "I did." A beat passed. "I saw Mateo's picture." Her arms didn't cross. She didn't fidget. She just stood still. "He was beautiful," Elijah added. She nodded. "He was loud. And curious. And made everything harder in the best way." He closed the laptop gently. "You kept him close." "It's the only way I still hear him," she said. "Memories fade faster than anyone tells you. I thought they would stay like photographs. Fixed. But they shift." Her voice was calm, but her hands clenched once before relaxing. "I was 20 when I had him," she said. "Too young, maybe. But I never saw it that way." He listened, quiet, focused. "We left Honduras when he was 5, she continued. "I didn't have papers yet. I cleaned houses, worked nights, taught myself English from library books. Elijah leaned forward slightly. We lived in a room with no windows for 2 years, she said. He never complained. Ever. Her eyes glassed over, but she didn't cry. He died 3 days before his 11th birthday. The room held its breath. He was walking home from school. Some kids were arguing on the sidewalk. One of them had a gun. She blinked once, then again. I told him to wait for me after school. That day I was late. Her voice didn't crack. It shouldn't have needed to. Elijah spoke softly. You couldn't have known. I should have, she whispered. That's not how life works. No, she agreed. It's how grief works. The clock ticked once in the silence. He was kind, she said. And messy. He left wrappers in his pockets and talked during movies and always asked for 2 bedtime stories instead of 1. Her lips trembled. She turned her face slightly toward the window. I stopped celebrating his birthday. Elijah nodded, more to himself than her. I stopped celebrating anything. He didn't speak for a long time. Not because he didn't have words, but because nothing would be enough. Instead he stood, crossed the room, and placed the pot of mint back into her hands. For you, he said. She looked down. I want you to have something green again. Her breath caught, quiet as rain. That night, she sat at the edge of her bed and opened the photo box. Not to weep. To remember. Not the ending. But the sound of Mateo's laugh, wild and full, echoing in the space between memory and breath. Elijah didn't sleep. He sat near the fireplace, off cold, and let his thoughts unspool. He remembered Elena's face the day she told him she was pregnant. How she'd stood barefoot in their kitchen, holding the test like a secret she hadn't decided to share yet. He remembered feeling afraid. Not of the baby, but of loving too much. He'd lost them both before he learned how to say it often enough. He looked at the closed greenhouse through the window. The grief Mariana carried wasn't quiet. It was steady. And maybe, just maybe, he wasn't afraid of that anymore. Elijah arrived late to the dining room the next morning. Not for lack of time. He'd spent the early hours staring at a folder on his desk labeled personal. It had been unopened for years. When he finally sat across from Mariana, she had already laid out the plates. Eggs, toast, fresh fruit, her rhythm uninterrupted. But something had changed in her face. The silence between them no longer carried avoidance. It held space. He reached for a fork and paused. Do you want to hear it? He asked quietly. She didn't look up. Hear what? My story. She placed the coffee pot down gently. Only if you want to tell it. He exhaled once, then began. Her name was Elena. He didn't rush. We met when I was still working out of a shared office above a sandwich shop. She sold wedding dresses next door. I used to pretend I needed Wi-Fi help just to see her. Mariana smiled faintly. She hated suits. Hated anything that made life look more important than it was. We moved in together after 6 months. Married in a year. He reached for his coffee. She wanted a big family. I didn't. At least, not then. I thought love was fragile. Conditional. He rubbed his thumb against the rim of the mug. She changed my mind. Outside, birds stirred in the trees. Morning sunlight spilled across the table. When she got pregnant, she cried first. I laughed first. We switched roles about an hour later. Mariana watched him carefully, not interrupting. She loved mangoes. Even at 2 a.m. Once, I drove 40 minutes to find one. When I came back, she was asleep on the floor with her laptop open, researching baby names. His voice softened. She wanted to name her Sophia. Mariana's breath caught. He didn't flinch. They were hit by a truck coming back from her doctor's appointment. I was stuck in a meeting. The room didn't move. I told myself I was building something for them. A future. He looked at Mariana, his face stripped of defense. But I missed the last ultrasound. The last time she laughed. The last everything. She reached across the table, fingers stopping just short of his. You loved her, she said. I loved her late, he replied. Silence folded over them. Not sharp, gentle. Weighted. Later that day, Rosa returned. She carried shopping bags and sarcasm in equal measure. I got groceries and judgment, she said, dropping both on the counter. Which do you want first? Elijah raised an eyebrow. Neither. Too bad. She unpacked cereal boxes with a flourish. So, she said, eyes narrowing, you've been spending a lot of time with your housekeeper. Mariana entered from the hall behind her, overhearing enough to pause mid-step. Rosa didn't notice. Elijah did. It's not what you think, he said carefully. Isn't it? Rosa asked. Mariana turned to leave. Elijah caught her eye. A silent plea not to. She didn't. Instead, she stepped into the room and took a bag from Rosa's hands. Here, she said quietly. Let me help. Rosa blinked. Thanks. The moment passed. Tense. Unnamed. That evening, Elijah found Mariana in the hallway, realigning a crooked painting. He stood beside her. You didn't have to stay. I know. He studied her fingers. Delicate, steady. Rosa doesn't mean harm, he said. She means protection. He nodded. She lost them too. Our parents. Before Elena. She doesn't trust people easily. Neither do I. Their eyes met. But you trust me, he said softly. She hesitated. Then, I want to. She told him more that night. Not all at once. Small things. Mateo's fear of dogs. The way he used to line up his crayons by height, not color. How he once told her he dreamed of a garden with music in the soil. Elena used to say music was the only thing that made silence honest, Elijah said. Mariana closed her eyes for a moment. Then, do you think people ever really heal? He thought about it. I think we soften. And in the softening, maybe something new grows. The house grew quieter the next day. Not out of distance. But peace. For the first time since either of them could remember, silence didn't feel like punishment. She cleaned slower. He stayed home longer. Even Rosa began to notice. You look different, she told Elijah, one eyebrow raised. I slept, he replied. She tilted her head. That's new. They weren't in love. Not yet. But they were no longer living separate lives in the same space. They were orbiting the same loss, and learning how to stay. The air in the house felt lighter. Not empty, lived in. Doors stayed open longer. Music played softly in the background some mornings. Not loud enough to distract, just enough to keep the silence company. Mariana hummed without realizing. A melody without name, born somewhere between memory and instinct. Elijah heard it once from the hallway. He didn't interrupt. He just stood there, listening. They crossed paths more often now, and didn't retreat. One afternoon, she found him in the garden, kneeling by the overgrown basil. He looked up, hands dirt-streaked. I don't think I'm doing this right, he said. She smiled. That's not basil. He glanced down. It's not. No, she stepped beside him, crouching. That's a weed. He laughed softly, genuinely. You're better at this than I am. She shrugged. I've had more practice letting things grow. He looked at her, really looked. Would you teach me? Her hands paused over the soil. Then, slowly, she nodded. Lessons became routine. Every evening for a week, they met near the greenhouse. Sometimes they worked silently, side by side. Other times they talked, about nothing, about everything. Elijah told her about college, how he nearly failed out because he was too busy building code no one wanted to buy. She told him about her first job cleaning motel rooms, how she used to sing to keep the silence from turning heavy. One night, as they trimmed tomato vines, she looked at him sideways. You're not what I expected. He arched a brow. What did you expect? She thought for a moment. Someone colder. He didn't take offense. You're not what I expected either, he said. Because I'm quiet? No, he replied. Because you're still open. After everything. That made her stop. I don't feel open. You are. In small ways. She returned to the vine. Maybe I just forgot how to close everything. A small shift came with a simple gesture. Thursday night. They sat outside after sunset, a blanket between them on the porch. The power had gone out for a few hours, and neither seemed bothered. They shared a thermos of warm tea. Mariana stared out across the darkened garden. I haven't sat still like this in a long time. Feels strange, doesn't it? She nodded. Then added, good strange. A quiet passed. Elijah offered her the last sip. She took it, eyes not leaving his. It was the first time she touched his hand without pulling away. Later that week, Rosa found Elijah in the kitchen, alone, humming. She stopped mid-step. You're humming. He looked up. Am I? Yes. And smiling. It's disturbing. He smirked. I feel present. Rosa leaned against the fridge. She's good for you. He nodded once. I don't know what it is yet, he said. But it feels real. Rosa crossed her arms. Then don't screw it up. Mariana noticed the change too. Not just in Elijah. In herself. She moved slower now, not from exhaustion, but attention. She started setting out 2 cups instead of 1. She rearranged the books in the study because she knew he reached for them. She left a lemon by the kettle. He always asked for one and never remembered to grab it. None of it was romantic. But all of it was care. Then came the photograph. It arrived in the mail one afternoon, an envelope without a return address. Elijah opened it on the front steps. Inside, a photo of him and Elena, framed by laughter and summer. She was mid-spin, hair flung outward, his hand in hers. On the back, a note in faded ink. You still carry her. Let that mean something. He didn't recognize the handwriting. Maybe an old friend. Maybe fate. That night, he left the photo on the kitchen counter. Mariana found it when clearing mugs. She stood there for a long moment, fingertips brushing the corner of the frame. Elijah entered behind her. She was your joy, Mariana said quietly. He nodded. She was. She didn't ask for comparison. She didn't need to. You still have joy in you, she said, without turning. His voice dropped. I only started remembering that recently. Her hand rested on the counter. Not quite reaching his. But close. That weekend, she made soup. A Honduran recipe. One Mateo had loved. She worked slowly, letting the spices bloom, the broth simmer long. When she served it, Elijah didn't ask what it was. He took a spoonful. And stopped. What is this? He asked. She smiled. Memory. He nodded once, and didn't speak again until the bowl was empty. That night, they didn't say goodnight. They just stood at the base of the stairs, looking at each other longer than necessary. Not waiting. Recognizing. Then going to sleep with something warmer than closure. The quiet didn't break. It bent. It started subtly, like wind changing direction before a storm. Mariana noticed it first. The phone rang more often. Elijah lingered less. His shoulders, once relaxed, tightened again when he thought no one was watching. She didn't ask. But she noticed. Rosa knew something was coming. She stood in the kitchen with her phone to her ear, lips pressed into a thin line. Elijah, she said when he entered. Do you know who's calling again? He didn't answer. Dad's lawyer, she continued. 3rd time this week. Elijah pinched the bridge of his nose. He wants access to the estate records, she added. I said no. He'll keep pushing. He always does. Mariana stepped into the room, catching only the tail end. Elijah's posture shifted the moment he saw her, slightly stiffer, less open. Rosa noticed. He's trying to claim back the land, she said flatly. Says it wasn't part of the original trust. Elijah kept his eyes on the floor. It's Mateo's garden now, Mariana said softly. Both of them turned to her. Rosa's expression faltered. Elijah's didn't. He won't get it, Elijah said. I'll make sure of that. But it wasn't just legal threats. That afternoon, a reporter showed up at the gate. Not a tabloid. A high-profile business journal. Persistent. She asked about Elijah's recent change of presence. His PR team had declined comment. She waited. 2 days later, a photo surfaced online. Not invasive. Not damning. But unmistakable. Elijah, standing beside Mariana in the greenhouse. He was holding a spade. She was smiling. The moment was quiet, intimate, unposed. The caption read, "From CEO to something else?" Inside Elijah Renner's disappearing act. He saw it first. He closed the laptop without a word. Mariana saw it later, through a link Rosa forwarded. She said nothing. But that night, her hands moved more tightly around the dishes. The cabinet closed harder than it needed to. They didn't talk about it. Not at first. But the space between them changed. He caught her avoiding certain rooms. She stopped humming. He left early 3 days in a row. She asked if he'd like dinner on Thursday. He said he wasn't sure. Rosa confronted him in the hallway. "You're pulling away." "I'm trying to keep her safe." "From what?" "From me." Rosa crossed her arms. "Elijah," she said, her voice lower. "You're not your father." He didn't answer. "She's not fragile," she added. He looked toward the guest room door, slightly ajar. "No," he said quietly. "But she's had enough broken in her life." That evening, Mariana found a letter slipped under her bedroom door. Handwritten. Neat. From Elijah. "I never meant for your piece to become someone else's story. You didn't ask for this spotlight. I didn't protect you from it. I'm sorry. I need to make this right before it undoes everything we've built." She folded the letter carefully and placed it in her drawer. She didn't sleep much. The next morning, she went to the greenhouse alone. The vines needed trimming. The soil had dried more quickly than expected. Her hands moved through the work, but her thoughts didn't follow. She remembered Elijah kneeling beside her, misidentifying weeds. She remembered the warmth in his eyes when she made soup. She remembered Mateo's voice, once asking, "Why do people run away when things feel too big?" She hadn't known how to answer then. She wasn't sure now. Elijah met with his legal team that afternoon. He pushed for the land rights to be formally split. He asked that Mariana be named caretaker of the lower acres, the garden, the greenhouse, and the quarters she worked in. "It's not a gift," he said. "It's recognition." His lawyer hesitated. "It'll raise questions." "Let them ask." That night, he waited in the dining room. Alone. Mariana didn't come. The mint plant by the window had begun to wilt. He stared at it for a long time. When she finally entered, her steps were measured. "I saw the article," she said. "I know. I saw your name. Your company. The comments." He waited. "I'm not ashamed," she said. He looked up. "But I don't want to be someone you hide behind silence either." "You never were," he said. "You were the only thing that made me want to speak again." A long pause. "I'm trying to protect you," he added. "I don't want protection if it costs me you," she said. The words hung there, undemanding, unafraid. He stepped closer. "I've done everything to stay in control," he said. "To avoid becoming the man I feared I might be." She searched his face. "And who is that?" He swallowed. Detached. Defensive. Silent. "You're not silent now," she said. He shook his head. "Because of you." The tension didn't dissolve. But it shifted. Later that night, they sat near the window again. No tea. No music. Just presence. Outside, the wind stirred the trees. Inside, something held steady. The rain returned on a Thursday. Soft at first. Then steady. By evening, the estate was cloaked in it, branches swaying outside the windows, gutters whispering, the kind of rain that made silence feel intentional. Elijah sat in the living room, fire unlit, mint plant freshly watered beside him. He hadn't seen Mariana all afternoon. Not because she was gone. Because neither had asked the other to stay. She entered without knocking. Her hair slightly damp, sleeves rolled to her elbows, eyes steady. "I couldn't sleep," she said simply. "Me neither." He moved over on the couch. She sat. No music. No tea. Just the sound of water outside and whatever they were ready to say. She turned toward him. "I don't want to be another soft place you lose." He inhaled, slowly. "You're not soft. You're solid." She shook her head. You know what I mean. He did. I'm afraid, he admitted. So am I. They didn't look away. It began quietly, layer by layer. I've been building walls since I buried her, Elijah said. Every year, I added another one. Business. Distance. Logic. Everything that felt safe. Mariana nodded. We do that. We turn survival into structure. He leaned forward, elbows on knees. When I met you, I didn't expect anything. I didn't expect to be seen. He looked at her. But you are. Her fingers fidgeted briefly. I wake up some mornings, she said, and forget what it felt like to be someone's first thought. I trained myself not to need that. He softened. You deserve it. A breath. Do you think there's a version of us, she asked, that isn't shaped only by loss? He didn't answer right away. Then, I think we're more than what we've lost. But grief, it doesn't leave. It weaves in. She studied him. Then what does love look like after that? He looked back at her. Like this. They sat in the quiet, letting it stretch. There was no rush. Then slowly, Elijah reached into the drawer beside him. A folded paper. Worn at the edges. He passed it to her. She unfolded it carefully. It was the sonogram. A tiny shape. A name scribbled faintly at the top, Sophia Renner. Mariana's throat tightened. She existed, he said. Even if I never held her. Her voice came gently. You carry her. I didn't know how to, until now. Mariana looked down at the image. She would have been kind, she said. He smiled. She would have challenged me. They both laughed quietly. The sound didn't echo, it rested. Mariana set the paper down gently. My mother, she said, never taught me how to grieve. She only taught me how to keep moving. Elijah listened. She lost 2 children before me. Stillbirths. Never talked about them. Just kept cleaning. Kept cooking. I think she believed if she slowed down, the sadness would find her. And you. I tried to do the same. After Mateo, I didn't stop. I worked. Scrubbed. Folded. Until everything around me was cleaner than my own heart. He looked over. And now. She exhaled. I'm tired of pretending it didn't happen. I want to remember him without drowning. He reached across the couch, one hand resting on her wrist, light but grounding. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. She didn't pull away. Later, she walked him to the edge of the garden. The rain had slowed. The steps where she once sat, soaked and silent, were glistening under the porch light. I come here to talk to him, she said. Elijah nodded. Can I say something? He asked. Of course. He looked out at the steps. That day. I almost kept walking. I saw you through the camera and thought, not my business. But something stopped me. She tilted her head. What? I think it was the way you didn't flinch. A pause. You weren't asking for pity. You were just surviving. She looked down. I wasn't sure anyone could see that. I did. They returned inside. The rain picked up again. He poured tea. She added honey. They sat on opposite sides of the couch, feet tucked under, shoulders almost touching. Not because of tension. Because some closeness is best approached slowly. I'm scared, he said again, softer this time. She looked at him. Of ruining it. Of failing someone again. Of letting it matter. Her eyes stayed on his. I'd rather matter, she said, than disappear. He exhaled. She reached out, not dramatic, not demanding, just her hand resting over his. You won't fail me by feeling, she said. He closed his eyes for a moment. Then opened them and didn't look away. No promises were made. No declarations. But something settled between them, earned, fragile, true. A shared understanding. That love, after loss, doesn't roar. It arrives quietly. Like rain returning to dry earth. The shift came quietly, like a thread slipping loose. It was Sunday morning. Elijah left early without saying goodbye. No note. No message. Just his absence, heavy and sudden. Mariana made coffee anyway. She watered the basil, folded the blankets, placed his mug on the counter out of habit. By noon, she knew something was wrong. By evening, she stopped waiting. Rosa showed up just after sunset. She didn't smile. "You've seen the article, haven't you?" she asked. Mariana shook her head. Rosa handed over her phone. The headline read, "Grief-washed billionaire gifts property to housekeeper, emotional redemption or strategic rebrand?" Below, a photo of the garden. The greenhouse. The porch. Their porch. Mariana's fingers tightened around the device. The article listed Elijah's recent legal motion, detailing the estate split and naming Mariana by full legal name. "Is this true?" she asked quietly. Rosa nodded. "He didn't tell you?" Mariana shook her head once. "He was trying to protect you," Rosa offered. But the words didn't land. They hovered, unwelcome and too late. Elijah returned after dark. He found her in the kitchen, arms crossed, the article open on the counter beside her untouched cup. He stopped in the doorway. "I was going to tell you." "Were you?" Her voice was low. "I wanted to get ahead of the backlash. I thought." "You thought I couldn't handle it?" He took a step closer. "No. I thought it was mine to fix." She looked at him, steady, unreadable. "You made a choice about us without me." "It wasn't about control," he said. "It was about shielding you." She exhaled sharply. "Do you hear yourself? You sound like every man who's ever made decisions for me." "That's not fair." "It's honest." Silence. "I didn't ask for your protection," she added. "I asked for truth." He tried to explain. He told her about the lawyer, the threats, the reporter circling again. He told her how he had stayed up late writing her name into that document because it felt like giving her something that no one could take. But all she heard was, he didn't ask. He didn't trust her voice in the moment that mattered. The kitchen felt colder than the rain outside. "I trusted you," she said quietly. "I never meant." "You keep saying that," she interrupted. "But intentions don't clean up damage." He looked at her then, not with distance, but devastation. "I was trying not to lose you," he whispered. "You never had to hold me that tightly," she replied. "I wasn't going anywhere." She stepped past him, slow but certain. "Don't follow me." He didn't. That night, the house felt unfamiliar. She packed lightly. Just a bag. Just enough. She left the mint plant where it was. She didn't say goodbye to Rosa. She closed the back door with her fingers shaking, not from fear, but from the weight of what could have been different. Elijah sat on the porch for hours. The rain started around midnight. He didn't move. For 3 days, they said nothing. He tried to write. Failed. He tried to call. Stopped before dialing. She returned to the city. Found a room with creaking floors and warm light. Worked quietly in a small bookstore where no one asked her name unless they meant it. She didn't cry. She organized shelves. She remembered the way Elijah looked at her the night he gave her tea and silence. And she wondered how something so gentle could unravel so easily. Rosa found him on the 4th day. "You look like hell again," she said. He didn't answer. "She was right," she added. "I know. You didn't mean to hurt her." "No," he said. "But I did." Rosa sat beside him. "You don't fix this with an apology." "I don't even know if I can fix it." "Then don't try to fix it," she said. "Just tell the truth. This time, all of it." That night, he opened the letter she had once left on the kitchen table. A short note. Folded neatly. "Some people make a home feel like air. Others make it feel like glass. You made me breathe again. Please don't forget how to." He read it 3 times. Then started writing something of his own. Not a defense. A confession. Meanwhile, Mariana stood in the bookstore's back room, watching the rain trail down the window. Her co-worker passed her a cup of chamomile. "You okay?" she asked. Mariana nodded. But something inside her whispered. He saw me. But he didn't trust that I could carry the weight with him. She held the cup tighter. And whispered back. I still wanted to try. Elijah didn't turn the lights on for 3 days. The estate sat in silence. No music. No movement. The garden wilted under light rain. The mint on the windowsill browned at the edges. He stayed mostly in the study, surrounded by untouched folders, dim lamp glow, and a mug he refilled but never drank from. At night, he sat on the steps outside, the same ones where she once ate in the rain. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He simply existed, and felt the weight of her absence. In the mornings, he made 2 cups of tea. One he placed on the counter. The other he poured down the sink. He told himself it was about habit. But it wasn't. It was memory. It was ritual in reverse. Rosa tried to reach him. She knocked on his door with groceries. Sent texts. Left voicemails filled with concern disguised as sarcasm. He didn't answer. Finally, she left a single envelope under his door with 6 words scribbled on the flap. "You're not done unless you quit." He didn't open it. Not yet. In the city, Mariana moved through quiet spaces with practiced grace. The bookstore was kind. Customers gentle. The work small, manageable. But silence lingered longer at night. She still carried Mateo's photo in her wallet. Still folded her shirts with clean lines. Still took her lunch alone. But there was an ache now, different from grief. Not deeper. Not sharper. Just new. She had let someone in. And then watched it fall apart. Not because of cruelty. But because care had come cloaked in protection, not partnership. And she'd been invisible too long to accept that again. One night, she visited the community garden near the edge of the neighborhood. The soil was coarse. The beds untended. She crouched and ran her fingers through the dirt anyway. An older woman across the way offered her half a tomato and a nod. She accepted both. That night, she slept with the window open. And dreamed of rain. Elijah, meanwhile, wandered through memories. He found himself in the storage room off the garage, opening boxes untouched since Elena died. Inside, baby clothes, a mobile shaped like clouds, a handwritten note she had left in his coat pocket once. "Don't forget, some things are worth the mess." He sat with it for hours. Didn't move. Didn't hide from the ache. It rained again on a Tuesday. Steady. Familiar. He stood barefoot in the garden, letting it soak his shirt, his hands, the regret he hadn't known how to name. For the first time in weeks, he wept. Not loudly. Just enough. Mariana felt the same rain. She stood under the bookstore awning at closing time, watching the drops hit the pavement in slow rhythm. She thought about the first time he saw her in the rain. How he didn't look away. How he offered his hand. And how she didn't take it. By week's end, she found the letter he had written. It arrived in a plain envelope. No signature on the outside. No fanfare. Just her name. Carefully written. Inside. "I was wrong to decide for you. Wrong to think protecting you meant silencing you. I didn't trust that you'd choose to stay, not because I doubted you, but because I never learned how to believe someone could. You were never someone I meant to hide. You were the first person I ever wanted to share. If I broke something, I won't pretend words will fix it. But I needed you to know this. You taught me how to feel again. And that means more than I knew how to say while you were still here. You don't owe me anything. But I hope you know, you were never just part of the story. You were the reason it started to matter." She read it once. Then again. Then folded it and placed it beside Mateo's photo in her wallet. That night, she stood on the apartment's small balcony. No stars. Just clouds. But she closed her eyes and breathed in the cold air like it carried something worth keeping. Back at the estate, Elijah reopened the envelope Rosa had left. Inside, a photo of him and Mariana in the garden. No headline. No caption. Just a note in Rosa's handwriting. "You looked like someone I used to know. Someone alive." He ran his thumb over the photo. And finally, stood. In 2 separate places, they each faced a mirror. No grand epiphany. No dramatic clarity. Just the reflection of someone healing the slow, unpretty way. And realizing they didn't want to do it alone forever. It began with a recipe. Mariana stood in the narrow kitchen of her apartment, thumbing through an old notebook. The pages were worn, the ink faded, but the handwriting was Mateo's, wobbly and misspelled. One page simply read, "Mama's soup. Rainy day." She smiled without meaning to. She hadn't cooked it in years. Not since the porch. Not since the night Elijah had tasted it and said, "What is this?" Memory, she had told him. Now, with onions sizzling in the pan and cumin on her fingertips, it didn't feel like a goodbye. It felt like preparation. Across the city, Elijah stood at the edge of the greenhouse. The mint plant had started growing again. Somehow. Despite the cold. Despite the neglect. He didn't touch it. He just stood there and let it remind him that things don't die the moment they're left alone. Sometimes they wait. Later that day, he walked past the porch steps and paused. The rain had stopped. But the air still carried the smell of something just washed clean. He sat. Not for nostalgia. For clarity. And finally said aloud the thing he'd been avoiding. "I didn't believe she'd stay." The words felt heavier spoken. But I wanted her to. Rosa showed up an hour later. No text. Just a knock and a box. "Soup," she said. "Because you look like you haven't eaten since 1998. He let her in. She unpacked the box onto the table. Then paused. "You know where she is, right?" He nodded once. "Why haven't you gone?" He looked down at the spoon in his hand. "I've said everything." Not in front of her. He didn't answer. She placed a folded napkin beside him. "Elijah. This time, don't stand on the porch." That evening, Mariana received a package. No name on the box. Inside, a stack of garden seeds. Mint. Basil. Tomatoes. Lavender. And a note. Just 5 words. "If it's still growing, come." Her hands trembled slightly. Not with fear. With decision. The next morning, she took the early train. No suitcase. Just a canvas bag. Inside it, her recipe book, a photograph of Mateo, and the letter Elijah had written. The ride was quiet. She didn't rehearse anything. She didn't need to. Elijah waited by the garden. Not pacing. Not anxious. Just ready. Every few minutes, he glanced toward the gate. Not because he doubted. But because some hopes are too important to pretend you don't have. When he finally saw her. Her hair pulled back, bag over one shoulder, steady gaze. He didn't speak right away. He met her halfway across the lawn. She stopped in front of him. And waited. He exhaled slowly. "I never wanted to be someone you had to recover from." "You weren't," she said. "But I hurt you." "You did." They stood in that honesty for a moment. "I made decisions without you," he said. "Because I still thought love meant protection. Not partnership." Mariana nodded. "And I walked away. Not because I stopped caring, but because I couldn't let silence follow me into something new." He took one step closer. "This doesn't fix it. But I want to try again. With you beside me this time." She looked at him. "You don't have to protect me." "I know. You just have to stay." "I want to." She let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Then handed him the notebook. He flipped it open. "Mama's soup. Rainy day." He looked up. "Dinner." She smiled. "Dinner." That evening, they cooked together. No rush. No noise. He chopped while she stirred. She plated while he poured tea. They moved around each other like a rhythm remembered, not invented. Afterward, they sat on the porch. The steps still glistened from earlier rain. She leaned against his shoulder. He didn't speak. Neither did she. They didn't need to. The silence had changed. It no longer echoed with what they'd lost. It pulsed with what they had begun. The next morning felt like exhale. Light pooled through the windows in soft lines. The house had not been this still in weeks, not this settled. Mariana stood in the kitchen, rolling dough for arepas. Her hands moved confidently, flour dusting her knuckles. Elijah entered with quiet steps. He paused a few feet away, not interrupting. "I missed this," he said. She didn't glance up. "The quiet. You in it." She looked over then, eyes steady. I'm not here to return to the way it was, she said. He nodded. I know. Good, she added. Because that wasn't enough. They ate together in the garden. The table was small, shaded by the edge of the greenhouse. Matteo's photo now sat framed beside the basil. A symbolic gesture, hers, not for display, but grounding. I want this to be something we shape together, Elijah said. Mariana didn't speak at first. Then, that means talking, even when it's hard. Yes. And listening, especially when it's easier not to. He smiled slightly. I'm learning. But rebuilding isn't a single act. It's repetition. Later that afternoon, they went into town for groceries. It was a simple errand. Until a woman approached Elijah near the checkout line. You're Renner, right? She asked. The tech guy who gave land to his housekeeper? Her tone was amused. Polite. Patronizing. Mariana's posture stiffened. Elijah's eyes darkened. He didn't respond. The woman smiled tightly and walked away. They finished in silence. In the car, Mariana stared out the window. You didn't correct her. I didn't want to make it worse. You let her define me. He gripped the wheel. I didn't know how to interrupt without embarrassing you. I'm not embarrassed, she said. I'm tired. He glanced over. I didn't say anything because I froze, he admitted. That's not an excuse. Just the truth. Her expression softened, but she didn't reply. Back at the house, she went straight to the garden. He gave her space. Later that evening, he found her trimming the lavender. He waited until she looked up. I want to get it right, he said. You won't always. I know. She set the clippers down. But I'd rather have someone trying, she said, than someone disappearing. He stepped closer. I'm not leaving. I need to believe that, she said. You will, he promised. Not because I say it. Because I'll show it. Over the next week, small things shifted. He invited her to meetings, not business ones, but conversations about the land, the future. She asked questions, offered ideas, disagreed when she needed to. He listened. She began leaving notes, brief, handwritten, sometimes just a quote, sometimes a reminder to rest. He kept every one. They built new routines. Tea after dusk. Walks through the rows of mint. Journaling together in silence. No grand gestures. Just proof. But one night, she didn't join him at dinner. He found her sitting by the fireplace, Matteo's photo in her lap. I forgot his voice, she whispered. Elijah sat beside her, saying nothing. I used to hear it in my dreams. Now it's just static. He placed his hand gently over hers. Maybe it's changing, he said. Not disappearing. She closed her eyes. I'm scared it means I'm letting go. You're holding on differently, he said. That doesn't make it less. She opened her palm slowly. I want to carry him forward. Not just behind me. You already are, he said. The next day, they hosted Rosa. She arrived with wine, suspicion, and her usual glare. Is this a reconciliation dinner? She asked. No, Mariana said, setting plates. It's just dinner. Rosa smiled. Better. Midway through the meal, Rosa leaned back, watching them move around each other with ease. I don't know what this is, she said, but I like it. It's not perfect, Elijah replied. No, Rosa agreed. But it's real. She raised her glass. To whatever this is. They clinked glasses. The season shifted. Late autumn edged into early winter. The garden slowed. But the soil remained warm underneath. One morning, Mariana placed a folded paper beside Elijah's coffee. It was her immigration approval notice. Finalized. Processed. He looked up, stunned. Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to wait until I could hold it in my hands. He grinned. Then stood and pulled her into his arms. Not urgently, not carefully. Just present. I'm proud of you, he said. I'm proud of me too, she replied. That evening, they danced in the kitchen. No music. Just movement. His hand on her waist, hers on his shoulder. No steps. No rhythm. Just swaying in the quiet. And not needing more. Winter settled in without ceremony. No snow. Just softer mornings, earlier evenings, thicker socks, and the smell of cinnamon tucked into the corners of the kitchen. Elijah now woke before his alarm. Sometimes to the sound of Mariana boiling water. Sometimes to silence, which didn't unsettle him anymore. He moved through his mornings with awareness. He no longer reached for distraction before presence. One morning, he found a note by his cup. It wasn't a quote. It was a question. What does home feel like to you now? He didn't answer right away. Instead, he sat with the words. Then walked outside and watered the mint. Mariana had changed too. Not loudly. She still folded blankets neatly. Still labeled everything in small, perfect handwriting. But her steps were different, unhurried. Not cautious. She smiled more. Spoke when something mattered, not just when it was safe. She began painting again, small canvases, muted colors, each one containing a single object, a bowl, a window, a leaf in motion. And she started writing letters to Matteo. Not to send. Just to stay close. They no longer tiptoed around their pasts. The photo of Sofia now sat beside Matteo's in the den. Two lives not forgotten, not explained, just held. Elijah framed Elena's handwritten note. Some things are worth the mess. It hung beside the porch steps. One night, the rain returned. Gentle. Familiar. He stood at the window, holding 2 cups of tea. She came to stand beside him, no words needed. Together, they watched it blur the glass. And she said, "I used to eat in the rain because it was the only time no one asked me to move." He nodded. "I saw you that day," he replied. "And I stayed. Not because I understood, but because I wanted to." She looked at him. "And now? I stay because I see you." She reached for one of the cups. "You always make 2. He smiled. "I never stopped." The following week, Elijah received an invitation. A speaking engagement. Prestigious. National. He hadn't accepted a public event in over a year. But this time, he said yes. When Mariana asked why, he said simply, "I want to speak about what matters now." She didn't ask what that was. He told her anyway. "You." At the event, he took the stage. No notes. No teleprompter. Just him. He began not with numbers, but names. He told them about Elena. About Sofia. About Matteo. About grief that doesn't vanish, but reshapes. And about the woman who taught him that silence isn't safety, it's a cage. "Grief made me successful," he said. "But love made me human again." The crowd applauded. He didn't look for cameras. He looked for her. She was near the back. Standing. Smiling. Seen. Afterward, they walked through the city. She held his hand like it wasn't a question. He kissed her temple without needing a reason. Neither spoke of the future as something distant. They spoke of spring, of planting again, of repainting the hallway, of putting a second chair in the studio. Not plans. Intentions. One evening, weeks later, she sat on the porch steps. No rain. Just cool air, stars above, and her sketchbook open across her lap. Elijah stepped out with a blanket. Cold. A little. He wrapped it around her shoulders and sat beside her. "What are you drawing?" "Nothing specific." "Can I see?" She turned the sketch pad. A window. With a tree outside. 2 mugs on the sill. One was full. The other, half empty. But both were there. She leaned into him. "You know," she said, "for a long time I thought healing meant forgetting." He nodded. "I don't think that anymore." "Me neither." They sat in silence, just long enough for it to feel sacred. Then he said, "Home, by the way." She looked at him, puzzled. He clarified. "Your note. The question. What it feels like now." She waited. "It feels like sitting with you in the quiet. No fear. No masks. Just stillness I don't want to leave." Her eyes didn't tear up. They lit. Inside, the fireplace crackled. Their photos lined the mantel, past, present, paused in time, none more important than the other. Nothing was perfect. But everything had been earned. And on the porch under the starlight they stayed, not waiting for storms, not bracing for loss, just breathing in the kind of peace you only find after you've survived everything you thought would break you. Have you ever mistaken silence for peace, when in truth, what you needed was to be heard? Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as crazier and more intriguing as you can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.